Hello, this is Unsung with GameLeap, and in today's video we're going to be giving you the 5 biggest Lillia tips I could give to any new Lillia player. So Lillia is kind of interesting in that she's relatively easy to play. There's not really too much going on under the hood here. She's a relatively simple champion with, simple execution. There are a couple of things that you need to know when you play this champion though. So we're going to be breaking these down and giving them to you, so that way you're able to play a mean Lillia from game 1. Our first tip for playing an absolutely disgusting Lillia is probably the most important tip, and that's going to be your Q flash. As you can see, this is completely disgusting, especially if you're already in a fight with somebody. The last thing that a team expects when you are queuing somebody in melee range is you flashing over and then hitting them for a instant teamfight win with your sleep. Q flash is absolutely imperative for playing an absolutely disgusting Lillia. So if you're new to Lillia and you want to know why these pro players keep getting nasty 5-man stuns, this is why. If you go up and you hit somebody with your Q and you're constantly tagging them, the last thing your opponents are going to expect is you Q flashing on top of them and then instantly putting them to sleep, both in-game and out of game. Remember, the most boring sleep-inducing thing in League of Legends is staring at a gray screen. So being able to Q flash onto somebody and instantly making them go back to gray screen simulator is not very fun to experience. This is why Lillia is such a disgusting consistent champion. This, when paired with Cosmic Insight in your rune slot, means that you have this engage every 4 minutes. If you have Ionian boots, this is further reduced, meaning that Lillia is incredibly consistent in getting multi-man sleeps off, and it's largely because of Q flash. This is a really strong technique that does not offer a whole lot of counterplay. This is why we include this so early on into the video. Now, next up is my second tip for you, and that's actually going to be our Hourglass. So if you've played any Lillia games, I'm sure that you understand how she interacts with Hourglass. You need this item in order to have this disgusting type of play, right? When you're playing Lillia and you hit that nasty Q flash on 2 people, 3 people, the only thing that's more important than hitting that Q flash onto them is actually surviving. So if you're able to get that Q flash out, it's not really super useful if you die in the 1.5 seconds that it takes them to fall asleep. What you can do is actually instantly use your Zhonya's Hourglass. The second that your animation completes of Lillia calling down the Dream Dust, if you mash your Zhonya's key, you will Zhonya's as soon as possible. This means that you're able to get your consistent follow-up damage, like so, just after the sleep cook time. This is absolutely imperative to playing a mean Lillia, which is why this is the second tip. If you really want to get into game and just start tearing people apart on the champion, these 2 tips are going to be the ones that help you the most. Now, next up is tip number 3, and that's actually going to be hold your W. When you're playing Lillia and you chase somebody down, you want to make sure that you have a way to consistently hit your W because it is such a disgusting amount of damage. You don't want to just be like throwing your W out willy-nilly, because all people are going to do is walk out of it or flash out of it. If you miss this damage, you are not going to be killing too many people because Lillia is a damage over time champion, right? League is notoriously healing infested right now. There is so much healing in League, it's really hard to make damage over time champions work without high burst. Lillia's W is a whole bunch of her damage, so if you're unable to hit this, you're actually not going to be killing the vast majority of people that you fight. There are 2 ways that you can hit this consistently, right? The first is going to be your sleep. The second is going to be off your Swirl Seed slow. When you're playing Lillia and you are fighting somebody, the way that you're going to take this fight is going to be walk up, try to land a Q, right? If you land your Q, then you can keep your opponent at this really gigantic range where you're able to just run around and continue harassing them with the Q, right? Eventually, they are going to want to try to get away, or they're going to want to chase into you. The second that they do that, you can actually land your E, which then guarantees your W is going to hit unless they have flash up. This removes some of the guesswork from having to hit Lillia's W and makes it so much more consistent. So next time you're fighting somebody and you're walking up and you're queuing them relentlessly, beating them to death with your branch, look for that Swirl Seed, so that way you can guarantee to hit that W. You can kind of animation cancel this as well by doing auto Q, and then instantly using your E in the Q animation. It makes it really hard to see. So then you can just straight up one-shot somebody with your W right after. Really important to playing a mean Lillia. Now, next up is tip number 4, and that's actually going to be multi-camping on this champion. There are a few places that you need to really abuse as Lillia, as Fiddlesticks, as any AoE clear champion, right? On blue side, there is a little mushroom here that you need to be standing on, as you can see here. Neither of our camps are losing patience meter here, but look at where they're at. They're at perfect range for us to just be sitting here and mowing them down with our Q. This is ideal for when you're playing Lillia because it shaves a whole lot of time off your clear and also keeps them in that optimal range. If we go ahead and respawn these camps and we hit them again, like so, we can actually walk them onto this little mushroom like I talked about before, so that way we can hit them both with the empowered portion of our W. So understanding how the jungle AI really helps this champion a whole bunch, because you're able to do a whole bunch of stuff, right? You're able to pull a whole bunch of stuff that you really shouldn't be able to pull together. You could do blue on your wolves over here like this, as you can see here, straight up in the center, just to the right of this little pebble thing here. We could do the same thing here where we end up hitting both of these with our abilities, and we can pull them both at once. You can also do this down here at Raptor Camp. If you hit raptors and you hit red buff and you stand right here in this little like cutaway, just like so, you can see that we're actually not losing any patience meter on either of our camps. There's a little tiny like cutaway right behind this tree that you can abuse every single time you play any of these AoE clearing junglers, and this really speeds up your clear between bases later on into the game. I wouldn't do this on the first clear, you want to do this later on into the game, but you can see just how powerful this is. Now on red side, the spots are just about the same, they just look a little bit different. It's going to be right here on this little mushroom once again. You can see we're not losing any patience meter. For the wolf, it's going to be the exact same, directly in the center of this path. You can see we're not losing any patience meter. And then red side is actually a little bit easier because the cutaway is way more visible when it comes to pulling your red and your raptors together. It's right there. You can see there's just a little bit of an edge there. We could just stand right here and then do both camps at once. Super, super valuable on Lillia. And now last but not least, the most important tip for any new Lillia player is how you actually want to be fighting on this champion. You are not a primary engage on this champion, you are a secondary engage. Like we talked about in the first tip, you want to be hitting one person and then suddenly surprise them by either running up at the speed of light or by hitting a good Q flash onto them. Once you get this down, I promise you your Lillia is going to be really, really gross, but I see a lot of Lillia players that really, really like to walk in and try to engage and do all this stuff. You don't want to be doing that. You don't want to be playing super aggressively on this champion because it will set you up for failure. So when you're playing Lillia, you want to make sure that you're stacking your passive off of somebody in their front line. You're really strong at the tanks, you absolutely melt them. And then you can run towards the back line with your 600 movement speed, make your spell undodgeable, so that way then you're able to come in and mop them up. It's very, very simple, but very, very effective, just like the rest of the tips in this video. So when you're playing Lillia, remember, you don't want to be playing like a main engaged champion. You want to go ahead and bide your time. Make sure that you're making the most out of your movement speed, so that way you can go and eviscerate an entire team by yourself single-handedly. Anyways, this was Unsung with GameLeap. Thank you all for watching, and I hope that you all have a wonderful day. I'll see you in the next one.